president of the Advanced Leadership Club. I am so happy to see all of you here tonight. We have a number of visitors. We're so happy that we have so many visitors. What we would like to do is recognize you at the end of the meeting because we want to start on time for Lance. Now, if you're not familiar with our club, we are a club of leaders. We're not only in Toastmasters, but in our community, our professions, our church, everywhere. We love leadership and we also love public speaking. So again, we are delighted to have Lance Miller tonight. At this time, I just wanted to let you know that our Vice President of Membership is Martha Stevens, and she will be chatting with our visitors tonight as we try to take our attendance, because we would love to see you back at our next meeting on November 5th. At this time, it is my great honor to introduce our Toastmaster, one of the most dynamic men I have ever met, DTM Ola Lanali. Please welcome him with a warm round of applause.
That's right. That's right. Thank you very much. I can't hear that applause. Oh, you're on mute. No wonder, but I can see your expressions and I can see the hand gestures. Thank you. And I got a thumbs up as well, too. Welcome, everyone. Glad to see you this evening. We got a fun and fun-filled, fact-filled, packed meeting for you tonight. A couple of key things, though, I do want to ask. Does anybody here know what the ultimate question is? Come on. Anybody? Nobody? Do you validate? That is number one. Do you validate? That is the ultimate question. We will find out this evening from our guest speaker a number of key questions that will be answered. But first and foremost, let me give his bio introduction. Lance Miller is an award-winning speaker and trainer. He has delivered over not 1,000, not 2,000, not 3,000, not 4,000, 5,000 speeches in over 60 countries, talking about public speaking, leadership, and overcoming failure and adversity. Key in these times. His real-life experience brings fun, lively, and entertaining presentations to the podium. Lessons of leadership, integrity, responsibility, and honesty are the hallmark of his messages. He shares a perspective of having lived life. In addition to his extensive business background, he has sat atop 14,000-foot peaks. The air is pretty thin up there. Rafted the roughest white waters in the US of A. Sailed the transatlantic from the Virgin Islands to Norway. Piloted his own aircraft hundreds of hours over northern Michigan to the tip of Key West. Scuba dived, okay? Scuba dived under the frozen ice lakes and twice hitchhiked through Europe. Are you excited yet? Come on, I got to see some. Okay, there you go. Lance is the CEO of TerraX LLC, providing sustainable products and technologies in agriculture, commercial and industrial and marine markets. His business experience spans serving as an executive with the 1984 Los Angeles Olympic Organizing Committee, Nestle and Anheuser-Busch, lots of good beer, to develop sales and marketing programs across 8 different industries and completing, wow, 5 new business startups. This is a lot. So I know you're going to have tons of questions to ask people. Lance is a member of the National Speakers Association, Rotary International, and of course, our own Toastmasters International. Get a fist pump for that one. He is a distinguished Toastmaster. And in 2004, he emerged from a field of 40,000 contestants from 110 countries to win the title of Toastmasters World Champion of Public Speaking. I bring to you tonight the one, the only, Lance Miller. Lance, take it away.
Well, Ola, thank you very much. And thank you for inviting me to your club. And really I want to acknowledge the fact that as a club, you reached out to do this program, because there's a lot of clubs out there in Toastmasters that are struggling, and they just sit there and struggle. And I'm going to talk to you about that. One of the things I just want to clear up front, I'm not politically correct. And I also don't pull my punches. And I say that because I've discovered in my life, the only way we can really solve problems if we're willing to talk about them, talk about the truth, get down to the nitty gritty of it. And I've had some people in different seminars I've given get upset because it's not that I'm critical. I happen to know what I'm talking about. And Toastmasters is not a perfect program. And it's a highly flawed program, quite honestly. But that's one of the things that I've found makes it such a dynamic program. It's not perfect. We have to figure out how to take this flawed program and make it work. And that, to me, is the sweet spot of what Toastmasters is really all about. And when we look at what are happening with clubs around the world, when I got in Toastmasters, just to back up, when I got in Toastmasters in October of 1992, and Ola gave a great job of listing some of my accomplishments. And that may sound like I've had nothing but success in my life, but I've had 5 new product launches or business startups that I participated in. I wasn't the founder of those things, but I participated in. But I also had probably 9 or 10 turnarounds and startups that didn't start. And I would be working 2 jobs at a time, trying to get things off the ground, trying to make something in my life, because there's nothing I've done in my life that has come easy. And my world championship was 13 years of competition. It was 9 years before I got out of the club. It was 4 times the district. It was 3 times the regions. In 2003, I went over 1 second and was disqualified from the regionals, where I clearly won it. And I had to come back the next year and come back the next year. But as I've now lost my hair and gained my wisdom, thank you, Ola. I would not change the path I've had through life for anything, because it has been that struggle and that persistence, learning how to overcome the adversity, learning how to overcome the losses and the failure that have made the riches for me today. And one of the biggest lessons I learned in Toastmasters, it wasn't speaking, it wasn't leadership, it was how to overcome losing. Because I had to learn how to overcome losing before I could win the world championship. And that was, I used to get really upset when I lost a competition. I'd go home pounding the steering wheel saying, these judges are stupid. If I could just get in front of an audience that had a high enough IQ to understand my brilliance, I'd be fine. Where do they get these people? And then I'd get home and I would have to reflect on it, and I would dust myself off. And the next year I'd throw my hat in the ring again and I'd give it a shot. And it was at one point that I realized that I had all this loss in my life, and I felt that I didn't want to look at it. I was cramming it behind me. Like I had this long trail of baggage of regrets and loss in my life. And I felt that, and it had part of the environment I grew up in, but most of them were my own personal considerations on it. And I looked at it one time, and after I lost that the first region, I thought I won it, and I didn't even place. And I went home and I was really upset, and I was looking in the mirror and I went, Lance, it's going to be pretty hard to learn from your mistakes if you're unwilling to admit that you're making any. And that's when my life really started to grow, because I was willing to admit that I was making mistakes, and I was willing to learn from my mistakes instead of looking at the losing. I started looking at the learning. Okay. And I want to bring that around to the leadership side in Toastmasters, because there's a lot of experience. I came in 1992 and I had a club. If you don't know my story, I had a club that was about 35 members, pretty dynamic club. It was about 2 years old. About 6 months later, we had, I don't know, maybe 5 or 12 people coming to a meeting. And then one meeting, 5 people showed up. And the club was going down, and we had to decide whether we were going to keep the club or not. And there's quite a story behind it, but the 5 of us sat there, and we were probably probably the most enthusiastic members in the club, because we showed up. And we didn't have a meeting that day. And anybody who's heard this, I say the same thing every time. We had this incredible institution in America called coffee. We had coffee that day, and we sat around and we're like, you know, what the heck are we going to do? We're going to close the club. We're going to keep it. And we decided through a number of conversations, Toastmasters used to recognize, they ranked all the clubs back in the 90s. They had a distinguished club program that did that, which I really liked. And that's what built my club to be a top 10 club in Toastmasters. And our idea was, if we're going to do Toastmasters, we're going to win with Toastmasters, or we're going to go do something else and win with it. And I've taken that concept and I said, we're not going to run a hospice Toastmasters club. You know, it's hospice Toastmasters, where we keep the members comfortable until the club dies. Okay. And there's a lot of clubs out there that are struggling, but here's the key point. We decided to build the club, and we decided to do something big. And this is a critical component in leadership. I read a great book on leadership. If you haven't read it, I recommend it. It's called The Dictionary. And if you go down and you look at the word lead, I love to dig into words. And see, there was a point on our existence as mankind that the word lead did not exist. We used to sit around a campfire, you know, eating Tyrannosaurus legs or something, and we grunt at each other. And somebody says, yeah, that one grunt, let's give it a special sound because it means a special thing. And you go down to the derivation, way back into Latin and Greek, where did the word lead come from? The word lead came from a concept meaning to go. So the whole concept of leadership is the idea that we're going somewhere. And what happens with a lot of Toastmasters clubs is we're on this like treadmill of just having weekly meetings, and we don't feel that we're going anywhere. And it's really hard to lead an organization that's not going anywhere, because it actually violates the definition of what lead is. So one of the things that really turned my club around is we decided to go somewhere, which was a top 10 club. And 5 years later, we were 95 members. We were the number 4 club in Toastmasters in the world. And that year, Toastmasters changed the DCP to the current DCP. I'm not a fan of the current DCP at all. It rewards mediocrity. You can be President's Distinguished and have a failing club. And I've voiced that to Toastmasters International. That communication hasn't been received with too much appreciation, but I voiced it. I said, it rewards mediocrity. It's like getting a gold medal for running a 30-minute mile in the Olympics. Okay. But with that being said, every club in Toastmasters should be President's Distinguished, because it is such a low level. We should do it, but yet we don't do it. Okay, so the talk I'm giving today is I housed it in the concept of Toastmasters, an internship for success. And what I've experienced in my life is what happens in Toastmasters is really not real. Toastmasters is an exercise. It's an exercise program. We exercise our communication, we exercise our leadership skills. And this is where we come to make our mistakes. This is where we come to build our muscles. So don't get too serious about Toastmasters. This is where we make mistakes. And the people that come to Toastmasters, and if I offend anybody, or if you feel I'm wrong, you're welcome to chat to me, and I'll tell you that you're wrong. But as my grandmother said, you could say anything about anybody as long as you end with God bless him. You know, it's the ugliest man I've ever seen in my life. God bless him. It just makes everything okay. But people don't get into Toastmasters because they're highly successful. People get into Toastmasters because they're incompetent, they're insecure, and they want to gain competency. They want to gain security. I joined Toastmasters not because I was highly incompetent and highly insecure, but I wanted to be more competent. I wanted to be more secure. I wanted to be a more accomplished speaker. And I didn't realize the leadership side of it. The leadership side has changed. Building my club changed me as much or more than winning the world championship, because I really learned how to work with people. I learned how to inspire people. It's changed my whole business career, to change how I work with people in business. But I worked those skills out in Toastmasters. So the point I'm making is, let's not get too serious about it. Let's make it a safe place for people to mess up. What we don't want to see in Toastmasters is people making the same mistakes over and over again, or they're not addressing their own personal foibles, their own personal inadequacies. Let's say you have someone who's highly critical and they're not addressing the fact that they're highly critical. We want them to grow through the Toastmasters program. And if they're highly critical, we want the people in the club, we want them to be responsible enough to be willing to reflect on the fact that they need to grow in this area. What I've experienced in my life is the things that I had trouble with in Toastmasters, I had trouble with in life. One of the things I was telling you about, I had a hard time losing in life. I felt cheated. I felt like people didn't like, I felt like invalidated. I felt, I took losing really hard. Toastmasters taught me how to lose, and it taught me how to learn. That was a reflection of my life. I had a hard time getting bad coaching, getting bad feedback. Toastmasters taught me how to get bad feedback. You want to get bad feedback? Be coached in Toastmasters. There's a lot of bad feedback in Toastmasters. Toastmasters taught me how to sit and listen to someone who had an opinion different than mine and listen to their speech, and taught me how to admire it and help them say it better, because I was in an environment that I needed to coach that person. They just gave a speech about something I completely disagreed with, but I had to assist that person. I grew from that experience. Now, I want to share a quick PowerPoint with you if I have the right one here. Let's see. I'm going to pull this one up. Yeah, we'll go in here. So let's see what I got. I'm going to have to come out. Love Zoom. That's fine. Let's do that again. I have a couple different PowerPoints, and this is fun for me because I just get to sort of chat with you guys. So that's not what I wanted there. Where are we going? Where'd this go? Come on, where'd my point go? There we go. Now you're going to see what's going to happen. Okay. This is a whole leadership thing I do. Okay, so here's what happens. When we're young, we have a lot of free will. Okay? And we're very creative when we're young. And what happens is we have these big people around us called parents. I assume everybody here had parents, didn't they? Okay, so okay, and our parents, who are big people, we learned, at least in my family, I learned that life was a lot more enjoyable if I did what my parents said. And so what happens, and then I had this thing called school, and there were big people in school too, and they told me what seat to sit in at what time. And in school, here's what I learned to do in school. I learned to study what other people figured out. I never learned to figure things out for myself. I learned to study what other people figured out. And I learned to sit there, and I learned to be quiet. And I had a hard time with that. I spent 7th grade in the hall doing table topics with the principal, okay? Because I did not want to be quiet in class. Then you go through school, college, and the whole thing is sit there and learn. We're the authority at the front of the room. Do what we say. You will then get to succeed. We get a job, and we're told what time to show up at work and where to sit. And when they were told, don't rock the boat, if we like you someday, we'll promote you. And what happens is, this happened to me to a lesser degree than other people, but I watch it in Toastmasters all the time. We turn over our creativity. We turn over our free will, and we become hypnotized by authorities. And we stop creating life. And the biggest thing I can see in Toastmasters, it gives us an opportunity, we start creating life again. And here's the interesting thing. This is so, how bad is it? We tell somebody to stand up in front of the room and create life for 4 to 6 minutes and do an icebreaker, and they pass out. That's how bad this is, okay? Now, in Toastmasters, I'm going to walk through this very shortly. There's three types in life. There's 3 types of people. When I do management, I do leadership training. I go, as a leader, there's 3 types of people. First type is the people you can't control. These are the people in Toastmasters that don't show up on time. They don't do their project. They don't follow the coaching manual like you're supposed to coach it. They have their own idea of what all counting is. It's like you just can't control them. They're not following the protocol in any way, shape, or form. They do a 5 to 7 minute speech and they take 15 minutes. Okay, those are problem people. There's people you can control. They show up on time, do what they're told. The problem with those people is that they don't create problems, but they also don't solve problems. And the whole trick in leadership is to create people you don't need to control. And that's what we want to do in Toastmasters. We want to build the membership up so that people are responsible and they understand the meaning of a team member, and they understand each role they're going to do. They know how to do it, and they show up and they do it great. We don't have to control them, but you have to understand people are coming into Toastmasters that have been hypnotized and told to sit there and be quiet, and somebody else is going to make their life go for them. Now, when I do this, when I use this PowerPoint on the stage, I have this slide I put. We go through life, a lot of us reacting. We come into Toastmasters learning how to react. And a lot of the actions in life are reacting. You guys agree with me? There's a lot of reaction going on. here's what we learned to do. Here's what I learned to do. And this is what I think the beauty of the Toastmasters program is. Normally when I'm on stage, I'm stomping on the stage when I do this, but let's see if this will work. No, it didn't work. I got to do this. So we snap my finger. I go, look, what we really learned to do is solve our problems by creating instead of reacting. Same letters, just a little different order. That's really what we learned to do. We learned to create in Toastmasters. Now, there's a lot I can go over with you on what we learned, but the biggest thing that I would want to push and want you to understand, the biggest concept I try to get out into the Toastmasters world when I'm talking to clubs is it's not about following all the Toastmaster rules. And a lot of people in Toastmasters are really good at reading rules. And they'll tell you there's a rule against that. You can't do that. What I'm interested in is in getting the Toastmaster results. And the Toastmasters result is somebody comes in who is incompetent at standing up and saying their name, and they can't run a meeting. And they can't give effective feedback. They can't make somebody else into a better person. What I'm interested in is that person growing in Toastmasters. And here's the other thing, just from that free will authority concept, our whole life, we have been rewarded, or we'll put it this way, we have not experienced pain and been punished if we followed the rules. We could burn the house down. And we said, well, I followed the rules. They said, okay, you followed the rules, you burned the house down, okay? And you know what I'm saying? If you followed the rules, you couldn't get hurt. Well, if you're going to be a leader, you sort of got to go screw the rules. I'm not saying disregard them. I'm saying you got to look at the result that we're getting. How do I get my members winning? And we got to figure that out. Now, the Toastmasters program is there to give us the tools to apply. What turned my club around, this was the point when we decided to be a top 10 club, and we didn't know how, and we started figuring it out for ourselves. We didn't call up Toastmasters International. We didn't call up the district. And quite honestly, at that point, our district was one of the worst districts back in the 90s. I can say that, everybody's gone. It's one of the worst districts in the world. As a matter of fact, at one point, nobody ran for district director, district governor back there. Okay, I mean, it sort of got they kept getting weaker and weaker and weaker membership, and Toastmasters International had to do an intervention and bring in 3 new people, and that's how bad my district was. So we didn't go ask the district, we started working it on ourselves. What do we got to do? And we realized the way we get our club winning is we get every member to do the program. And if they do the program, then they start to win. Now, the old Distinguished Club program rewarded us with points for every component in the Toastmasters program. That's why I'm not a big fan of this current DCP. And even with Pathways now, it's even weirder now with Pathways. And like I said, and anyway, we can talk about Pathways a little bit, but what I want to get to, here's what I'm going to share with you. There were 3 reasons I isolated once we had a successful club, why my club won, what turned it around and made it into a top club in Toastmasters. Last year, we were number 31 in the world for education completion. We weren't even trying. We didn't even know anybody was tracking us. We found that out in July after the year was over. And I have 30 members in the club right now. We don't have 95 in the club, okay? The clubs have their own life. And I understand that. And a lot of the leadership that built that club to 95, we also got rewarded by Toastmasters International as being a top 10 club. We got recognition. We don't get recognition for being a 95 member club right now. Okay, but there are 3 reasons that I saw clubs fail, and the other is the reasons they succeed. We can talk about success all the time. What's interesting is if we isolate why people fail or why businesses fail, and people sit there and go, oh no, I'm doing that. No wonder I'm failing. So let me tell you the 3 reasons that I have seen clubs fail. Number 1, nobody owns the club. What do I mean by that? Clubs are allowed to fail. If you have a business, the buck stops with somebody at some point. There's a problem. The problem finally hits the owner, and the owner realizes I either got to solve this problem or I'm going to go out of business, and they start taking action to solve the problem to keep the business going. In Toastmasters, most of us joined because, and we assumed the people ahead of us were smarter than we were. So we're going to learn from the people in front of us, but the people in front of us joined and they think the people in front of them are smarter than them. So there's this thing I call an SEP, which is it's somebody else's problem. If you've ever read Douglas Adams' Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, that's where I got that. Okay. I'm getting some nods on that one. So there's this somebody else's problem concept in Toastmasters where we come in and nobody says it's my problem. They go, somebody ought to fix this. We need to start the meetings on time. Somebody should make that happen. We need more guests and members. Somebody should do that. Nobody says, it's my problem. I'm going to solve it. What turned my club around is we had 5 of us that owned the club. And we started solving the problems. And then as that happened, more people came on and more people started owning the club. And in the end, the whole club owned the club. Okay. And I learned such a valuable lesson in Toastmasters about that. And I'm going to share with in just a second. When I get down to the second point, I'm going to share something that happened to my club. And I realized that I had seen something. To quote Dana Jania, I had seen something. I'm not sure what it was. No, I had seen something that most people hadn't seen in Toastmasters. I'm going to share that with you in just a second. So the second reason that the clubs fail is they don't do the program. Just plain and simple. Now, why do I know that? When we decided to build our club to a top 10 club, we went to every member. We saw we got points for, the competent communicator and the advanced communicator. So we went to everybody and said, well, where are you? How many of these can we get done this year? We'll get more points. We'll move ourselves up in the ranking. So we had a thing in our club where we asked every member to do a speaking level every year under the old legacy program. And we were doing it for the points. But here's what changed. The people in our club changed, because when we got them speaking frequently, they started to change because they started doing the program. Now, I said I compare Toastmasters to a little bit like an exercise program. And if you've ever haven't been exercising, you go to the gym, after the first day, you're sore. Well, it's like you've never given a speech. And after that first speech, you're nervous. Well, a lot of people are so nervous after their first speech, they go, I'm not speaking for 6 months. Well, what if you went to the gym and you said, I'm so sore, I'm not exercising for 6 months? How are you going to feel 6 months from now? You're going to be sore again because you lost all the gain you got from that one day of exercising. And if you went to the gym, you got to go to the gym 3 or 4 times a week. And after 3 or 4 weeks, you're going to come out of your stiffness, your soreness, you're going to start feeling some muscle develop. Same thing happens in Toastmasters. When I got people speaking frequently, they started keeping their gain. And when they started keeping their gain from speaking, their life started to change. They started to gain confidence. They started to feel competence. They got what I call the twinkle in the eye. They had a little different spring in their step. They had a higher level of self-esteem, and they started dragging their friends and family to our meetings because their life had changed. And, and I'll give you just another quick summary on that. I had a friend of mine 4 or 5 years ago, wanted to lose 50 pounds, and he joined Weight Watchers. And after like 6 months, I'm talking to him and he goes, nah, it didn't work. I saw him about 3 months ago and he'd taken the 50 pounds off. He said, God, you look great. What'd you do? He goes, I did Weight Watchers. I said, I thought that didn't work. He goes, no, this time I did the program. And what happened? He went to the meetings, he did the weigh-ins, but he didn't do the program. Now, Toastmasters works if you do it. And I want to explain to you, there's 4 areas of development in Toastmasters. There's communication, which is prepared speeches and table topics. My life has been benefited, and I have had as much gain from table topics as I have prepared speeches, because being able to answer an unexpected question has saved my skin more times than I can count. The next area is speech evaluation. In my club, we call it coaching. Okay, it's speech coaching. People don't hire speech evaluators. They don't hire executive evaluators. They hire executive coaches. And the whole purpose in our club is you coach the person to be more competent at what they're doing, to be a better speaker. You move them forward. Being able to have the skills to coach somebody and move them forward is a very important skill in life outside of Toastmasters. What I do in business is I have to work with people and make them into better whatever they are. And I hone those skills by learning to be a great coach in Toastmasters. Second area of development. Third area of development, effective meeting management. You learn how to run a Toastmasters meeting, you run it on time, you have proper intros, you've timed it out, you learn how to do that, and you get to make all your mistakes in Toastmasters. In life, outside of Toastmasters, I have to run meetings all the time. People tell me they love to come to my meetings because they start on time, they run on time, and they end on time or early. I don't keep them there forever. I know how to keep things on control. I have agendas. If it's in a conference room, the room's cleaned up, the chairs are straight, there's a bottle of water, an agenda on everybody's table, place, waiting, and I'm at the door greeting them, just like the sergeant of arms. I learned how to do that because of Toastmasters. Fourth area of development is leadership. You do that by being one of the 7 officer positions and learning how to be a real team member. But through the whole Toastmasters experience, we're learning how to be a group member, how to be a team member. We don't show up, the team suffers. And that's something that's not taught in life very much right now. There's a lot of people that are only ones or me only out there in the world. If they don't like it, they don't do it. And we have to learn life is lived in groups. Even the Lone Ranger had Tonto, he wasn't the Lone Ranger. He still had a sidekick, right? And so we learn how to be a team member. And what's needed in organizations, what's needed in any place you go in life is how to be a good team member. Even if it's just in your own family, you know how to be a good team member. So the second reason that clubs fail is they don't do the program. And this program is all 4 of those components. Now, here's what I saw in Toastmasters. How many people on the call here have ever been vice president of education? Okay, got a lot of hands going up. And I usually ask, what happens in May? And when I do these live, here's what happens in May. You're begging people to finish a speaking level, right? And they always have a nasal tone. And they always go, yeah, I don't know if I really want to do it right now. I want to do it when I want to do it. I don't want to be. I have a tendency to just want to go out and shoot those people. It's an American thing, okay? I do this talk internationally. People are like, oh my God. I said, it's an American thing. And they all crack up when I say that, okay? Okay, the point is I have very low tolerance for somebody. I need the club to do this. And you're going, yeah, I don't know. And I'm like, come on, the club needs you to do this so we can get our points. Here's what happened in my club. As I said, we started off with nobody owning the club, 5 of us owning, and then it grew to the point where the club owned the club. The club wanted to be a top 10 club. There wasn't 5 of us. Everybody in that club wanted to be a top 10 club. And here's what happened. In May, the vice president of education is getting calls and people are mad. And they're going, you haven't given me enough spots to finish my CC. I'm not going to be responsible for this club not being a top 10 club. You find me speaking slots. That's what I saw when you get an aligned goal and you build a team where everybody's on it and everybody's going in the same direction. And that's what I don't see in Toastmasters very much, because we don't have that game where we're all going to someplace, we're all winning as a group. Now, another analogy of that is how hard would an NFL football team play if the owner was the only one that got the Super Bowl ring? They'd be out there just sloughing it off, right? Because they don't get to win. No, the players win because they want to win the game. And that's the key of a successful Toastmasters club, a successful business, successful humanoid groups is getting everybody on the same page, accomplishing the same thing. Now, earlier, I told you that the key to leadership was you're going somewhere. That's the first principle. The second principle is arriving there. So if you're a leader, you know where you're going. And the second thing you do as a leader, you arrive there and you have a group that arrives there. That's all you need to know in leadership. You know where you're going and you arrive there. End of your leadership lesson, right? We got my club to arrive there as a group in force. Third reason clubs fail, they don't promote. I didn't say they don't promote effectively. They don't promote. Okay, I'm sorry. We have a skill set in Toastmasters that every human being needs. And those that don't need it the most. Don't think they need it the most. You know, somebody, oh, I don't have stage fright. I don't have any problem with that. No, they're the people that don't even know how to communicate with people because they're so insensitive to the person in front of them. They don't realize what they're saying. They need to learn some sensitivity and looking at their audience. But we don't have a human communication course that everybody takes when they're 4 years old and we know how to work with our fellow human beings on planet Earth. That's what this teaches us. It teaches us how to interact with people and how to listen. You know, and quite honestly, there are some of the oddest personalities in Toastmasters you will ever find. There are people in Toastmasters that would not be accepted in any other organization in the world. You know exactly what I'm talking about. I go, one of the biggest assets we have as Toastmasters is that we accept anybody in this organization. And one of the biggest liabilities we have in Toastmasters is that we accept anybody in this organization. And here's what happened to me. I get these weird personalities. Look, 95 members for like 8 or 9 years, and you're rolling 30% over a year or 40% over a year. You got a lot of people coming to your club. There were some people in Toastmasters, and I went, holy smokes, what, I know we got people coming over the border. I think we got people beaming in from other planets. What planet are you off of? And I learned to work with them. And at work, I would run it, or at work or another nonprofit or social community activity I'm in, I'd run into that same exact personality. And I would go, oh my gosh, there's someone like you in my Toastmasters club. I know exactly how to work with you because I figured it out in Toastmasters. Okay, so let's just review this really quick, and then we'll get into some Q&A with you because I'm really interested in your questions. 3 reasons clubs fail. Nobody owns a club. Okay, they're all trying to think Toastmasters International. We've been rewarded for sitting there and showing up, and the authorities are going to build they're going to make everything go right. There is no higher authority in your club than you. And your club is a direct reflection of the cumulative leadership in your club. If it's failing, that means you as a group are failing. Second reason that the club fails is nobody's doing the program. So they're not getting the benefit. People will stay to the degree they have value and benefit in the organization. Third reason, they're not promoting it. Okay. Now, I want to leave you with one other concept. What if the Toastmasters program didn't consist of starting a club with 20 members and getting a DCP? You got a package in the mail, and you had 20 people together, and you got this package, and you said, okay, here's your box. Open it up. I want you to figure out for yourself how to build the most successful communication and leadership training program you can design. And you have all the Toastmasters tools that we currently have. Here's your box. They're all in there. You figure out how to make the most dynamic communication leadership program you can design, and the winner gets $1 million. And it's a game like Survivor. You get thrown on an island with some things, and you got to figure out how to get your group to work together and to survive. Or it's like The Apprentice, back before Trump had been president and he was just a celebrity. But, they throw him out on the streets of New York, and they had to try to figure out how to make their business work. What would happen if that goes, and you've probably all done the leadership test where they give you like 20 items, you're in a plane crash, and you got to select the top 3, and there's no top 3. It's just, can you work as a group? But you have this, it's also like that cooking show called Chopped, where they open the basket and they got a can of sardines, some granola, some lemonade, and some swizzle sticks, and they got to figure out how to make a meal out of it, right? And what happens if we do that? We don't assume the authority is there to tell us, and I'm trying to follow a rule. We throw that aside and go, here are my tools. How can I use this to make a dynamic communication leadership program? Let me use these. That's what we did in my club. We threw it aside and said, let's figure out, we want to be a top 10 club. And we played that for blood. And we had 95 members pulling on a rope in the same direction. And it was one of the most exhilarating, rewarding experiences that changed my life as much, if not more, than winning the world championship did. So just think in those terms. I could talk for 6 hours on this. Let's roll it over at this point to Q&A. And I don't know who's going to lead the Q&A, but I don't want to read chat, and I want to have questions asked to me. So thank you for listening and being patient with me.
Oh, Toastmasters, first and foremost, a round of applause. And actually, this time you can come off of mute so we can hear you. Come on, there you go. All right. That's
great. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So a couple of key things just to make sure that we do this organized. Yeah, you can either raise your hand and Lance will call upon you, or you can use the reaction button and then click raise hand. So it looks like Gil has raised his hand. Lance, take him away.
Go ahead. What I'd like someone to handle the questions for me, because I'm going to focus on the answers and I don't want to be deciding and missing people. So,
all right, not a
whoever
problem.
the Toastmasters, if you can handle that for me, then we'll just go on. No. So where's Gil?
Lance, I'm right. It's Gail. Lance,
Gail,
I'm right.
Okay,
here.
Gail. Okay, great.
And, my question to you is, could you share with us some of the techniques or the tools that you used for promoting your club that were successful? Now, granted, I know this is 25 years ago and we've got a slew of new tools, and our VPPR, Freddie Ricks, is working like a dog out there. But I'd love to hear some of the tools that you guys used that were successful beyond us just asking people to come.
Okay, a couple points on that. I have a whole program called Promoting and Marketing a Toastmasters Club. And I said, I'm not politically correct. I don't pull my punches. Toastmasters doesn't know how to promote and market their clubs. If they did, we'd have more than 20 members in a club. Clubs would be successful. The vice president of public relations hat officer position talks about putting out a press release or a newsletter, but there's no hard, it really should be vice president of promotion and marketing. That person's responsibility is to get guests to come to the club. And that's where we made it with ours. I've got 6 points. How do I do it? 6 points that I teach, but every club has to figure out for themselves what works. One of the things we do a survey on our club about every 2 years. How did you get in the club? 90% of the members came from personal invite. But that doesn't mean that you can't have multiple reasons for personal invite. So I'm going to run down through these quickly. I have an audio program on my website that goes into great detail on this. And tomorrow morning if you're on my newsletter, if you're on my email blast, I have an hour talk I did in District 42 on this exact subject. If you're not on it, you can go sign up on my website for my newsletter and you'll get it tomorrow. But I send out, at least I send out speaking tips once a week. And now I'm going to edit this and send it out to Toastmasters. I'm trying to let's get people alive. Okay. Promote and market. First thing is you got to hang out a sign, let people know you're meeting. A lot of people don't even promote the fact they're meeting. Okay. And that can be Meetup. It can be Facebook now. If you're meeting in an office, then you need to sign up. You post it on the office email, whatever. You just put a sign. If you're meeting in a physical location, put a sandwich board out in front, Toastmasters meeting inside. That's the first thing. Second thing is we came up with these 4x6 cards, okay, similar to this, that we promote our club on. And we found that to be the most successful. It may not be for you. We tried business cards. We tried 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper. They got thrown away or lost. The 4x6 card it was thick. It was hard. It had 2 sides on. We put a lot of information. People thought they were getting something. It wasn't too big, not too small. It's like Goldilocks was just right. And so and we pass that out to our friends and family, but also promote around the geographic area of your club if you're meeting physically, because we service the area around the club. So if you got some businesses, walk down and talk to the businesses, pass some cards out. Great communication and leadership program right down the street. Wednesday night, 7 to 9. It's very inexpensive. There's not a business owner in the world that wouldn't like his employees to have more communication and leadership skills. To that degree, if we just went out and we got stock boys and McDonald's cashiers in Toastmasters, we could boom Toastmasters, because stock boys in the grocery store don't want to be stocking shelves the rest of their life. And nobody that's a McDonald's cashier wants to be a McDonald's cashier the rest of their life. If we went out and talked to those people, they would come in because this is more applicable to your success than college is. Okay. Third area, have a special meeting. Have a special meeting that this is a special meeting you're having. My guess is you have more people coming to this meeting tonight than you normally have. Well, if every other month you had a special meeting with a special speaker or a special subject, you can attract people not to come to a meeting, but to come to the meeting. Third area, have parties outside of Toastmasters. We got a lot of membership because we had Halloween parties or Super Bowl parties, and people would come. My club would have it. We always liked each other, but they would come. We weren't trying to get members. We were just having a party. But people came and they met this great group of people and they were fun. Everybody's looking, people are looking for fun people to be with. And they said, what a fun group. And they would come to our meeting. We'd have a Super Bowl party. We'd have a bunch of guests at it and we'd play table topics at halftime or something. And everybody's laughing, having a great time. And they would come to the meeting. We'd always get 2 or 3 usually members after a Halloween party or a 4th of July party or a Super Bowl party. So every other month, they have a wine and cheese party. I talk about wine and cheese at my house. Sit in the backyard. You learn to speak after drinking. That's an important skill to learn. And then, you make people feel guilty because they came and drank your wine and ate your cheese. And you say, okay, you drank my wine, ate my cheese. Now you got to come to my Toastmasters meeting. But the point is they get to meet people and they get to rub shoulders with them without sitting in a Toastmasters meeting. It's a comfortable environment. The next area was to do speech crafts. We used to do 3 speech crafts a year when we got rewarded for doing speech crafts, and Toastmasters doesn't reward us for doing that anymore. Personally, I feel every Toastmasters club should be required to go out in the community and do either a youth leadership or a speech craft in the community to help the community be better, to take our skills and build a better community around us. And if we did that, if every Toastmasters club did 2 programs a year, Salvation Army, Chamber of Commerce, wherever, they went out and help people communicate, we would have people flooding into Toastmasters because every club would be reaching out. Last area is go out in the community. Every Rotary Club, every Lions Club, every Kiwanis Club, every Chamber of Commerce needs speakers. Go out and talk about how to write a speech, how to do table topics, how to do PowerPoint presentations, give a lunch and learn, whatever you need, or go out and talk about something else, but tell them you're in Toastmasters. Every time I speak at a Rotary Club, Kiwanis Club, Chamber of Commerce, I get people coming up to me wanting to know how to get involved in Toastmasters. It is a huge issue for people, and we just have to be overt. So those are some ideas. That's not the be all end all of it. There are 1,000 ways. I want to tell you this one story. It was in 1999. We were building my club. I was doing an internet startup, and we had a vice president of public relations it was right around Easter, who came dressed as Little Bo Peep. And she had this big basket of green plastic Easter eggs with a chocolate kiss and an invitation to Renaissance Speakers, my club, inside. And she went prancing around the room in her Little Bo Peep thing going, take some Easter eggs, take some Easter eggs. And I'm like, oh my God, this is the stupidest thing. Man, I reached in, I grabbed 4 Easter eggs, put them in my briefcase. I'm like going, God, I can't believe she's doing this. I got to work the next morning because we have a weekend meeting. I got to work on Monday morning. And I opened my briefcase up and there's the 4 Easter eggs. And I went, well, I was director of sales and marketing. So I put them on 4 of my salespeople's desk. 3 of them came to the meeting, 2 of them joined.
We're back to you just have to ask.
And you have to give them chocolate.
Well, that's true. So, Lance, I want to say you deserve a cookie for that, okay? So please treat yourself when you're over. But
I'm also going to tell you how I joined. I had a friend of mine ask me to come to the club 8 times.
Yep.
How many times we asked somebody once and they didn't come? We don't want to bother him. He kept saying, we had so much fun. I want you to come see how much fun we're having. I went to the club because I knew he wouldn't stop asking me until I went to the club. I was getting tired of him asking me. Be a pain in the ass. Okay, and ask a person. Be a little bit annoying. Come on, I want you to come to this club. And you don't have to stay.
Lance, we have been struggling trying to find ways to get our members to speak in the Rotary, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know what's changing there, but can you help us with how do we get our people in besides asking? I mean, maybe we're just not asking enough.
You just promote, but you have to have good speakers and good topics. Okay. They're always, you can tell, well, listen, if you have a speaker drop out, we can provide a speaker for you, but you have to have good speakers and good topics because I'm in Rotary and I'm in the 5th club formed out of 36,000 clubs. My club's 110 years old here in Los Angeles. And we have the top people, we have top programs come in and they don't want some schlocky speaker to come out. So if you're going to have people go out, that's a whole other subject. But what you do, you have to have subject matter. You can usually go on a website, list yourself as a speaker, talk to clubs and say, if you wind up having a speaker drop out at the last minute, call me and I can come speak. But I would recommend taking 2 or 3 of your really good speakers and having those speakers be the Rotary Kiwanis speakers, not just call your club. Have a couple people that can go fill in and you have topics you talk on. It could be public speaking, lectern etiquette, how to structure a speech. I do lunch and learns on people don't know open body conclusion. They don't know that. Open, 3 points in the body, conclude. And then you have them write a speech right there at the table and get it up and give it. I have these little exercises that they can do. And the people have huge wins on it because it's a huge problem. People have to stand up and say something. They don't know how to do it. So if you go out, you have to enhance people's ability to live their life, be more successful, to survive better in some component, and then you'll be successful with it. But I want to get to some other questions too.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes. So Lance, we do have a question from the beautiful but very shy Prince M. Does the coaching mean you are critiquing rather than evaluating a la Toastmasters? Does the coaching mean you are critiquing?
No, the whole point is we want part of our club to that point. Yeah, what we're doing is we're trying the purpose of the coaching is to improve the speaker. And we have very good coaching in my club. As a matter of fact, when I started getting hired to coach outside of the club, I felt guilty charging money because I do this in Toastmasters every weekend, right? But it was extremely valuable. But the whole idea is I'm not going to evaluate you. I'm going to coach you to be, and we don't have a general evaluator. We have a club coach. The idea is, how do we make it better? That's the focus. Evaluation is, I can tell you that you're fat and your hair and your shirt doesn't match, and I evaluated you. I did not help you. If I'm coaching you, I'm going to say, what you need to do is you need to be, wear clothes that match. You don't do stripes and checks, and you should comb your hair and get your hair cut, and that's, and you need to improve your appearance and all that. It's not an evaluation. It's a moving a person to a more competent and a more confident position in life. And that's the essence of what we're doing. And it's not so much that we're changing the Toastmasters program as we're changing the emphasis of what the forms are, what the effect we want to have on our speakers.
Thank you much. Now we'll go to Bonnie, and someone is sharing a picture. Stop sharing.
Thanks. Hi, Lance. So my question originally was regarding how in the virtual world we can distinguish one club from another for the promotion. Because now that we are so many virtual clubs, the clubs just all seem to be the same. So if you can expand a little bit.
Yeah, great question. Great question. And it comes down to, I have this formula that I came up with when I was competing, and I said, the bottom is our message in speaking. And then we have above that the mechanics of how we're going to deliver that message. But there was a component I was seeing in speakers that I was trying to struggling with, and I was trying to see, what is that component? And I really saw it in most of the world champion speakers, and I was missing it. And then when I started winning speech contests, I started to tap into it. And it's what I call our life force or our life energy. It's who we are. It's putting our personality and our energy, our emotional energy. It's not just about going through the motions. It's about being the motions. And I really talk in speaking, you need to be your message. It's not a message out here you're talking. No, you need to embody your message. When you walk out, you are your message. You believe it wholly. And so with that, the energy that we exude in an online Toastmasters meeting, the fact that it starts on time, the fact that we recognize everybody, the fact that we're laughing through it, the fact that the meeting's moving. I have been to Toastmasters clubs I've been invited to, and the president came on and talked in some incoherent, nondescript manner for like 15 minutes. And I'm going, when are we going to start the meeting? Or the Toastmaster comes on and has a 10-minute dialogue with themselves over things, and someone didn't show up, but I'm trying to do this, and I know we're virtual. And so that's not leadership. That's not good meeting management. We have to have professionally run meetings and acknowledge guests when they come in, have good introductions, good speakers. You run the Toastmasters program and make it work, and the energy comes up. And I come back to what builds great clubs are dynamic communication and leadership experiences and winning members. So the members need to be winning, and you have to get the program, the winners, the members doing the program. I'm going to give you a strange analogy, but when I was learning to fly, landing the plane was the hardest thing you had to learn, because you had to be able to do everything when you landed. Taking off was easy, flying along was easy, but when you landed, you had to be able to control 4 different directions that plane could move. And you had to be able to keep it on a certain line and control your speed and control your descent. And it took all the skills. That's a little bit like running a great Toastmasters meeting. There's not one component to it. There's like 4 different things you're trying to control and run and move through that. But when you start to get that in, and how do you do it? You start working it out for yourself. You start trying, you fail, you go, that didn't work, this worked really well. You get the feedback, you're honest with each other in your club. You're saying, let's build this thing, let's make it more dynamic. You're open to receive constructive, feedback. You're working as a group to create a great dynamic experience. And when you come together as a group and do that, people come in, they feel that energy, they see that energy, and they want to be part of it. That's what happens in my club. And people come in and they go, this is I've been to Toastmasters Club. This is like nothing else I've ever seen before. You know, but we run on time, we run straight through. We have a very seasoned group, so everybody knows how to do their job. And it's a lot of fun to do that. And new people come in and they're like trying to get up to speed on that. And I hope that answers that question, but it's not just check these 3 boxes. You have to take full ownership of it. Toastmasters is a microcosm of life. And just like you run into crap in life you don't expect, you're going to run into it in Toastmasters, and you better figure out how to deal with it. So.
Love it, love it, love it. All right, Lucia, you have a question. Come off of mute and ask away.
Thank you for being here tonight, Lance. In my home club, we have a hard time getting buy-in, like you're talking about, getting a member to the place where they're not needing to be controlled type of thing. So what tips do you have to get people to be bought in, to say, hey, we need to be President's Distinguished, and there's like no other way. This is what we're doing this year.
Great question. A couple of things that I would recommend. First of all, a lot of times, I don't know what's happening in your club, it's happened in my club. A lot of times we try to default all our communication to email. And I grew up before email, and we used something that you may not be familiar with, but it's called a telephone. And another thing we used was coffee. We used both telephones and coffee to communicate through. Okay. So there were a lot of times I met with people at a coffee shop or after the meeting, and would sit down and talk to them. And one of my rules for management is the amount of communication necessary to lead and manage any organization is grossly underestimated. So, so the point is, I had live communication with people. The other thing is, it wasn't about, this is what I need you to do. I would talk to the club members about, what do you want to accomplish in the club? And we want to facilitate your growth in the club, and then work that into what the Distinguished Club program is, because they have specific goals and purposes. And one of the things I've learned both in Toastmasters and in business is, when you start to deal with an individual's purpose, they come very alive at that point. And I read a great book on purpose. If you haven't read it, it's called The Dictionary. I recommend it. I can get into purpose quite a bit with you, but I'm not going to segue on that. So the third area I would recommend is, there's a concept in leadership I use called an attainable goal. And a lot of times we go for things like President's Distinguished, and all we need somebody to do is to show up at the meeting. We can't be President's Distinguished until they show up at the meeting. So the attainable goal is show up at the meeting. Now, as a leader, you're taking your group on these little attainable goals, and eventually you're going to arrive at the destination. Remember, it's to go someplace. As a leader, your responsibility is to get them there. One of the ways you get them there is by giving the group and individuals small attainable goals that they can attain. And when they do it, they win. And then what do? Per my speech, the ultimate question, you validate them when they win. And everybody is hungry in their life for admiration and validation. Is what we live on. It is the plankton of humanity. Okay. And it's what we all feed on, is validation and admiration. Somebody was grammarian for the first time. You tell them, well, you did a great job. They say, I was so nervous. Oh, yeah, but you did a fantastic job on it. Let's do it again, and you're going to be more comfortable. Oh, okay, I'll try it again. The attainable goal is just to get them to take a role. There was a guy named Mark Eaton who played for the Utah Jazz. I knew him in the National Speakers Association. He said when he joined the team, they were losing by 12 points. Average loss was 12 points. He goes, the coach didn't go, okay, we're going to win a game. He goes, let's see if we can lose a game by 10 points. He says, so they started losing a game by 10 points. He goes, great, let's see if we can lose one by 8 points. He goes, we started losing by 8 points. That's right, we would screw it. If we can lose a game by 8 points, we can win a game. But what did he do? He got them to win through getting them to use an attainable goal. So that's one of the things, is to get people just to buy in on a role or buy in on something. The last thing I did in my club this year is with Pathways was an anomaly about equivalent to the COVID-19 pandemic, as far as screwing up the club, changing everything. You know, it's a completely different training program, and I'm not going to get into a deep dive on that. But the point was, we had to figure out how to use it. A lot of my members hated it, and I had members that didn't want to do it. And I talked to each member, and I just said, listen, this is what I know. Toastmasters works if you do the program. So I set up what I call it, and actually a friend of mine in the club I did this, and he goes, oh, we could call that the Competent Renaissance Speaker. And what it consists of is 10 speeches, 10 coaching assignments, being a functionary, we have 5 functionaries, being a functionary one time, and being table topics master, general evaluator, and Toastmaster one time during the year. That's 28 speaking positions or club positions. We typically have 50 meetings a year if you have we'll meet once a week. So that meant that every member was agreed to have a role for half the meetings in the year, but they were going to do it one step at a time. And I had everybody but one person in the club agree to do that. So we're running our own program, which is 10 speeches, 10 coaches, functionaries, and top 3 in the meeting. Everybody agreed to do that. And then that lays out our whole education program. And we just said, we'll just fill in pathways. Whatever you wind up with in pathways, you wind up with. I'm not going to try to win with pathways. That's a whole other 2-hour talk right now. I want you to win as Toastmasters. And I had people in my club that refused to do pathways and they were going to quit. And I said, well, what do you want to do? They said, I like the other program. I said, great, do the other program. We're going to count it as pathways, but just do the other program. I had one very old member, very long-term member, says, I want to do 15-minute speeches. I don't want to do 5 to 7-minute speeches. And he disliked pathways immensely. I said, great. Do it in the Competent Communicator Manual. Do them 15 minutes instead of 5 to 7. Work that out with the VP. We're going to count them on your pathways program. I want you winning as a Toastmaster. That's why I talk about the rules versus, no, I'm not going off and saying we don't evaluate speeches. You just do whatever you want. No, we're doing the Toastmasters program. We're doing specific skills we're learning. But I sat down with each one of those people, and the guy that I just told you about, that was an hour talk on the phone with him. It wasn't a 5-minute conversation. You have to let people know you care about them, that you love them, that they're in Toastmasters, and you want them to get the most, that you want them to win and get the biggest experience from their Toastmasters time that they can get. You want them to improve and enhance their life to the largest degree they can, and you want to facilitate that. And that's why the person's there. And so that takes a lot of leadership guts to stand there and say that, and then you got to figure out how to service it. But the key point, so you've got to have good communication with your people and listen to them. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much, Lance. Now we have a personal question coming from Martha. Now, Martha, we are being recorded, so you can ask your question.
Okay, I'll be good, I promise. Lance, I just want your email address and or your website information.
Website is, which I can post it, but it's lancemillerspeaks.com. Okay. And I have, by the way, I had some stuff on there I was going to show you. I have, which one is it? Speaking tips. I got to come off that one. I got a bunch of tips cards. I got free stuff on the website. I'm not going to worry about that right now on my screen share. On the website, I have speaking tips cards. I'll just show them to you here. All these are free downloads. Speaking tips cards, speech evaluation tips cards. I have Building a Championship Club tips cards. They've got just great little pieces of data on it. Then I have audio, I have audio lessons and video speech training lessons and stuff like that if you want to participate in that. But there's a lot of information on the website. I send out a lot of information on my email list. So when you come to the website, right at the top, it says subscribe to the email list. You get that and you'll get it. I don't spam you, but sometimes I'm pissed off and I need to tell the world about it. So I'll send you an email and say, I'm really pissed off today. And other days I'm having a good day and I'll let you know that.
Much appreciated. Good catharsis. LaTanya, you have a question, and this will be our second to last question. LaTanya, take it away.
Hi, good evening, Lance and everyone. Lance, that was a great presentation. So thank you very much for the information. My question is regarding evaluations. And I'm just curious if you have any suggestions or if you can provide us with a formula with regard to providing evaluations, coaching, feedback. Sometimes it just feels like we're doing the same thing over and over and you're hearing the same thing over and over. And so how would you suggest we jazz it up?
A couple of things. And I want you to understand, I'm not pushing this. I have an hour audio lesson on effective speech evaluation. So okay. I have an hour, it's on my website, and okay. It's $20. I'm not going to retire on that, just understand. So, but, and then I have a speaking tips card, speech evaluation tips card that has an overview of it. I have a form that I laid out, but a couple of things that we did in my club is we would bring in some outside evaluators who were really good evaluators. And so we could see it. We have recorded speeches now because we're virtual. What could be good is to record. I mean, I'm just coming up with this off the top of my head. Record your speeches off the top of your meeting. And then maybe you have a special meeting that people want to see the feedback on their speech and learn how to be a better evaluator. And you bring in, there's probably some world champions that might be able to help you, some accredited speakers that could give you feedback from that standpoint. I'm sure you've got some, I know a lot of people in District 66 because I've been over there a lot, and you've got some really good speakers and very competent people in District 66. Say, we want to get some feedback on this. We want to work on our evaluation skills and have them evaluate the speeches, and then look at how did your club members evaluate it. And so you start to see, oh, I didn't see that in the speech. And one of the key things that happens in order to evaluate something, if you think about it, you can't evaluate a single item. If you've never had pizza before and you have a piece of pizza, you don't know if that pizza tastes good or not because you don't have anything to compare it to. Another example, if you're evaluating a car, if you're looking at a used car, you know what a new car looks like. You know how a new car functions, so you can tell what is this used car like. So if you don't, when you get ready to evaluate a speech, if you haven't set up in your mind what a good speech looks like, what good vocal variety, good speech organization is, what good eye contact is, good use of words, good stage movement. If you don't have that template in your mind, you can't look at that speech and see how it can improve because you don't have anything to evaluate it to. Then you're just sitting there, what do I say, grasping at cobwebs, where you're trying to come up with something. So that's some components with good speech evaluation. You have to have that ideal speech there to see how does this one compare to it. So you're evaluating against something standard. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lance. And our last question from the evening will come from Ungwati. And Lance, it's a financial question, digging into your finances a little bit, how you spend your money. How many clubs are you a member of?
It's funny. I get that all the time. I'm a member of one club. I have a life outside of Toastmasters. Okay. And a lot of people think, oh, you're a world champion, you do all this stuff, and you must be 15 clubs. If I was in 15 clubs, I wouldn't have time to talk to you guys. Okay. But I have I have a new business that I just launched about 5 or 6 months ago, which is going phenomenally well. And I'm extremely busy with that, traveling all over. I did a whole training for District 12, driving from Sacramento back to LA, going down the 5 freeway on my phone. Okay, because I was scheduled and I had to be in Sacramento, and I called them and I said, look, I'm going to be in the car. They said, well, do it on your phone. So I did a whole training driving back to LA on my phone. I'm in one club, but I'm also in a Rotary. I'm in the National Speakers Association. I work with the Boy Scouts. I'm in the Adventurers Club of Los Angeles, the Glendale Chamber of Commerce. I'm active with my church. There's a lot of activity I'm doing. So.
Thank you very much, Lance. Highly appreciate it. And fellow Toastmasters, let's come off of mute with another raucous round of applause in appreciation of Lance for sharing his wisdom.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Lance.
So
Yes,
much.
yes.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you so much.
Excellent. Excellent.
Thank you.
Awesome. Excellent job. Thank you very much, Lance, for sharing your wisdom and validating us. That's right. Answering all those ultimate questions.